Before we go on to today's whip towel exercise, I just want you to do one more repetition phase of our exercise from yesterday with the wax off, wax on, just with your hands. The reason for this is that you probably were feeling a little bit embarrassed and restricted probably first time you did these sorts of things. It's like sort of doing Tai Chi in the park. You become self-conscious. I want you just to go and try this again today with sleeping on it overnight, fresh perspective, and that's part of deliberate practice, is coming back to it and seeing if you've gained any more awareness or feel for the exercise. So once again, we want two hands stretched high, full motion, add the body in the transition here, the dip, right? And then we're gonna stretch out and finish high over our non-hitting shoulder. So give this a try. I'll pause it in a second. Take a few seconds to reflect on how you felt, how your body felt. Maybe you felt something different, maybe you did. Doesn't really matter. I just want you to have the focus and awareness of the exercise before we go on. So let me pause the video now. Today we're proceeding on our deliberate practice lessons, progressively getting a little bit more complex, talking about the kinetic whip concept. And remember from the overview I said that we have to start thinking about this rigid object, this tennis racket, as being a fluid whip that we're pulling around our body in a fluid, free way. So the first thing we need to do is sort of gain this experience of what it is to feel something that we are used to being inflexible, making it feel flexible and feeling this pulling motion instead of this levering and pushing motion. So to do this, I want you to build a little training aid with me, and I'll show you how quickly here. It'll only take a few seconds, and we can proceed with the instruction. To build this whip racket, we need a few items. First thing we need is something like a 1 pound bag of pinto beans. Now I chose pinto beans because they're cheap, and if they spill, they're not going to hurt anything. So I'll have a link in the notes where you can do a quick search and you can buy these 1 pound bag for $2. If you have something else in your kitchen, that's fine, but I'm recommending pinto beans. So the other two things that we need, three things, is you need some masking tape, some box tape, need a little freezer bag, quarter, half gallon would be ideal, and we need an old towel. So the first thing we'll do is just cut open this pinto bag, if I can do that, and we're going to pour about 1/3 of the bag into our freezer bag. So we're leaving 2/3 of this pound bag in the original bag, and now we have about 6 or 7 ounces of pinto beans in our freezer bag. And we'll just seal that up if you have a zip bag. If you don't, then you can just use your masking tape and put a little seal around that to give it some extra stability. So that's step one. Step two is to take your towel and get a little folded up here and kind of twist it up tight. And about 6 inches from the end of this little twist up that we're doing, we're going to place the pinto bag around this. I'll explain why we're doing this in a second. But then we're going to take our box tape and we're going to wrap the pinto bag around this section of our towel. And you know, it takes a few tries to get this done smoothly. We're not worried about doing it exactly right. Get it attached there. And I'm dropping these items. And once you have it sort of attached, then we're gonna add reinforcement at each end. Like this. There goes my tape again. And a couple more for security to get it really sealed on there so it doesn't come off. And I'm going to wrap this sort of tightly. We'll give it one more. And with one more at the top. So that's our whip racket, and I'll explain how these two things, our real racket and this whip towel racket, are similar. In terms of our racket, it's 27 inches long, and it usually weighs between 10 and 12 ounces. But most of the weight in the tennis racket goes towards the head, so the center of mass, the balance point, is towards the throat of the racket right before the strings. So about 2/3 of the way up the length of this tennis racket. So what we've created here is, so if we we measure this towel whip and we grab it about 27 inches down, this is like the handle of the racket. And now we're can use this to swing around with something like the weight of a tennis racket. It's not exactly the same, it doesn't really matter to get to the effect of these drills. So I know the question you may be asking yourself if you're watching this video, especially one of my videos for the first time, is you're gonna say, hey, Kim, do I really need to build this to get the idea of this tennis instruction? Well, my answer to you is yes. We're not just giving you an idea of tennis instruction. Remember, to really improve, we actually have to physically do it. You can't just watch a YouTube instructional video. That's step one. But actually doing is really the biggest step towards improvement. So it only takes a few minutes, doesn't cost much money. You can use this as a permanent training aid, and we'll have other exercises using this whip towel. In this first sequence of exercise, I want you to take this whip tennis racket and just feel how to swing it using your old way of doing things, which is sort of a levering, pushing action. So I want you to just basically swing this however way you swing it, which I'm pretty sure is some form of pushing or levering like this. Just see how it looks, see how it feels. So I'll pause the video while you do that. So now that you've experienced your old way of swinging, the pushing, levering, now we're going to try the new way, the whip way of swinging, which is through a pulling motion. So with one hand for now, and again, we're grabbing this whip towel about 27 inches down at the end. So I can sort of grab the other end, maybe just so it gets out of the way. And I want you to do the wax off, wax on motion that we did starting the day and what we did yesterday. So basically, we want to try to swing this up and around, swing this up and around. And I want you to do it, several times, up to 20 times maybe, and just feel the pulling motion, and a little bit of the whipping motion. Just basic, we're not trying to get complicated here, so I'll pause the video. In this next sequence, I want to try to have you start to have a more sensitivity about the center mass of the racket and how it feels in a whip towel version. So again, the balance point on a tennis racket is towards 2/3 of the way out, towards the head, not quite there. And we have the same thing here where we have most of the weight of our little whip towel 2/3 the way out, and then we have sort of the tail of the whip here. So in this next sequence of wax on, wax off, I want you to try to feel the center mass as you swing the racket back in this pulling action. And you can be a little bit bigger with your arms and a little bit bigger with your motion. And when you do, again, 10 or 20 repetitions. So we're gonna maybe swing it up. So get some momentum. Remember, sort of pulling up and around and up over our shoulder maybe. And as you get right back here, start to feel the weight swinging back. Feel the pulling motion. And then as you turn, feel the whipping momentum come down and up. And just right about here is our contact point, right? So try to feel the contact point of the center mass going through that motion. I'll pause the video for you to do that. In this next sequence, I want to have you try to imitate more of a goat-like form. So we'll play a Djokovic video for you, and you can watch it 2 or 3 loops here. And then I want you to try to imitate Djokovic's form and the feel of his stroke using your whip towel. So that means maybe grasping the towel closer to your hands together a little bit more so we're not way down here. So we're gonna, again, sort of use 2 hands to maneuver this whip towel. And again, we're gonna have a pulling motion. So, and a little bit higher. So Djokovic takes the racket back like this, right? So I want you to do the same thing with our whip towel. I want you to go up, more vertical, and then dip, transition, feeling, again, the center mass and feeling the pulling motion, and see if you can sort of look like Djokovic more. And even this can wrap around. So as you have more momentum after several repetitions, this racket is going to actually whip around, and you'll see that with Djokovic's finish as well. So I'll pause the video for you to do some Djokovic imitations. In the next repetition, I want you to do this adding more body motion and more length and stretch in your stroke form. So typically people will keep their arms very close here, and so the towel and the whip will be very close to their body. I really want you to extend your arms up and out, and then add more dip and swing with the body motion. And a little bit faster turn with the hips, so you really feel the turn and you feel the pull of the center mass going around the swing circle. That's really more realistic feeling of what Djokovic is feeling. Again, we're looking for that high take back, and really can use a little bit more force with your arms as you swing around as well, but keep it a body-driven motion for the most part. Let the arms extend out from the body as you swing around here. Okay, I'll pause the video. So the reason for the whip towel is to try to really break through away from the pushing and levering action of most people's swing to a pulling action. So we have to exaggerate a different feeling. We have to start with a different feeling, and that's why we went through these series of exercises. We'll use this whip towel again. But the final exercise, of course, as again we build this in a progressive way, is now I want you to take your racket again up in your hand, and instead of grasping the handle in the palm of your hand like this, which is the first step to this sort of levering, pushing action that almost all recreational players have, I want you to place your racket whip in the fingers of your hand along the base of your fingers in your hand. Very loose. So this is the first connection of the whip to the body in a more flexible whip-like manner. You know, if you have the racket in the palm of your hand, you automatically are going to get into this levering, pushing action. Now, if you have it in your fingers, now this racket can kind of float around in your hand. You still have control of it with a pulling motion. And so now that we have the racket in the fingers of our hands, now I want you to do the basic Djokovic wax off, wax on motion. So again, we're taking it high, back like this, and we're sort of pulling it up, and then we're letting it drop, and we're letting it extend out and whip up over our shoulder. And you can hear the whip right there. And that's what I want you to feel. But we want to do it with all pulling motion. Everything is a pulling motion. Very smooth and very fast. So I'll pause the video for you to do that. You may have to do 10, probably 20 reps. Keep working on the speed. Feel the swish, feel the pulling motion, feel it like it's effortless. That's our 15 minutes of deliberate practice today. Again, we'll pick up the next day after you have a fresh perspective on it. You may want to do this little exercise a couple more times during the day. You know, pick up the racket, make sure that the racket is gripped in the fingers, not in the palm. And, you know, you can do it with your hands, you can do it with a racket. We just want to get this pulling motion and whipping motion. And you can do it several times just for a few seconds. The reminders will keep it gaining more awareness, more attention on this, and we'll pick this up tomorrow.